Numbers chapter 30. And Moses spoke to the leaders of the tribes of Israel, saying, This is what the Lord has commanded. If a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word. He must do everything he said. If a woman makes a vow to the Lord or binds herself by a pledge while she is still in her father's house and in her youth, and her father hears about her vow or pledge but says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her father forbids her on the day he hears about it, none of her vows or the pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. The Lord will release her because her father has forbidden her. If she marries while her vows or the rash commitment she herself made are binding, and her husband hears about it but says nothing to her, then her vows or the pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband forbids her on the day he hears about it, he nullifies her vow that is binding or the rash commitment she herself made, and the Lord will release her. But any vow made by a widow or divorced woman will be binding on her. If a woman in her husband's house makes a vow or obligates herself by a pledge with an oath, and her husband hears about it but says nothing and does not forbid her, then all her vows or pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband nullifies them on the day he hears about it, then whatever proceeds from her lips, whether vows or pledges, will not stand. Her husband has nullified them, and the Lord will release her. Any vow or sworn obligation to practice self-denial her husband may confirm or nullify. But if her husband says nothing to her about it from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or obligations that she is under. He confirms them because he said nothing to her on the day he heard about them. But if he nullifies them after he hears about them, then he will bear her guilt. These are the statutes that the Lord commanded Moses regarding the relationship between a man and his wife, and between a father and his daughter while she is still in her youth in her father's house.